You found the podcast, Go Beyond the Brief, where we take a deep dive into the societal currents shaping our lives. Together, we'll explore the often unseen forces at play. We'll examine the research, dissect the data, and most importantly, if you're seeking to understand what's shaping our society,
Well, the really tragic
this
and
is the
complex
place.
events at Annunciation Catholic Church and School in Minneapolis. That was Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. We've got a range of sources here, news reports, notes, official statements, and our goal really is to sift through all these details, pull out the key insights, understand the nuances, and maybe figure out what truly stands out about this incredibly impactful event. So the violence itself unfolded just before 8:30 in the morning. It was during the first school-wide mass of the academic year, and the details are just harrowing. 2 children, only 8 and 10 years old, were shot and killed. In the church pews, 17 others were injured, mostly children, aged 6 to 15, plus 3 elderly adults. The shooter, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, died later by suicide. But digging into these sources, something really unexpected came up, a connection. A really personal one. Robin Westman's mother, Mary Grace Westman, she worked at Annunciation School, as an administrative assistant. For 5 years, she only retired back in 2021. So this wasn't, just a random location. There's a direct link there.
That connection, that really complicates things, doesn't it? Because you see this meticulously planned attack, firing dozens of rounds from outside the church windows. And there was apparently a manifesto mentioning scouting entrances, plans to barricade doors even, real forethought. But then you have this individual, Robin Westman, with absolutely no prior criminal record, that kind of planning, combined with no history. It presents a huge challenge for identifying threats beforehand.
A massive challenge. How do you predict that? If someone plans meticulously but has no red flags, no record, what does that tell us? Are we even looking for the right thing? And the complexity just keeps building when you look at the shooter's identity itself. There are court documents from 2019. The mother filed to change the child's name from Robert to Robin, stating minor child identifies as female. But then official statements from authorities about Westman's gender identity have been, contradictory, confusing even.
Right. And that confusion sort of mirrors the public divergence we're seeing around the motive itself. It's quite striking. You have the FBI classifying it as domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. So they're pointing towards ideology, specifically targeting a religious group. But then you have Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara saying, essentially, hold on, we haven't determined a motive yet. And he specifically mentioned police hadn't found an established relationship between the shooter and the church.
Which seems directly contradicted by the mother's employment history we just talked about. That's a major disconnect.
It really is.
And then there's the digital footprint. These sources mention disturbing writings, things like references to suicidal thoughts, depression, but also phrases like, kill Donald Trump, and where is your God? Plus, other reports mention racist and anti-Semitic messages too. It's a real tangle.
It paints a very fragmented picture, doesn't it? It's hard to isolate one single driving force. You've got this mix of deep personal despair, maybe mental health struggles, intertwined with these external ideological grievances, political anger, hate speech. It makes drawing a clear line from cause to effect incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But what is clear, tragically, is the human cost. Amidst that chaos, you had school staff acting heroically, moving students under pews for safety. The principal praised their actions, saying it prevented something even worse.
Unbelievable courage.
And the sheer volume of gunfire, maybe 50 shots in just 4 minutes. The sources say it left officers, the whole community, just deeply traumatized. You can only imagine.
You really can't. And, connecting this to the bigger picture, this isn't in a vacuum, is it? Targeting the most vulnerable people in a community, it feels like part of this wider crisis of gun violence we keep seeing.
Yep.
And the community's reaction, shifting from shock to these pragmatic demands like calling for armed security in schools, that just shows a real shift, a disturbing one, in how secure people feel.
Absolutely. And I think what this deep dive really highlights is just how intricate these tragedies are. They're not simple. They're woven from personal histories, complicated identities, conflicting ideas about motive. They often resist easy explanations, leaving us with, frankly, more questions about prevention than answers.
So, as we try to piece all this together, these conflicting narratives, the personal connection, the mixed online messages, the challenge facing all of us becomes pretty stark, doesn't it? How do you even begin to address the roots of this kind of violence when the motives seem like such a complex knot? Personal despair, ideology, hate, maybe mental health issues, all tangled up, especially when the perpetrator has no obvious warning signs in their past. It's definitely a question for all of us to think about moving forward.
Intelligence memo, the Richmond domain perspective. Now, you might be thinking, okay, was there some connection here to a school shooting? We looked at the documents, and the short answer is no, not directly mentioned. But what is here? Well, it offers a really profound contrast to the story we often hear about domestic extremism and how the government, deals with it. Okay, let's unpack this. So the heart of this is that FBI memo. It's called Interest of Racially or Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremists in Radical Traditionalist Catholic Ideology. Almost certainly presents new mitigation opportunities. Quite a title, its main point. It connects these racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, RMVEs, to a specific religious subgroup, Radical Traditionalist Catholicism, or RTC.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here really is that this wasn't just some abstract idea. The memo actually pointed to specific real-world cases, showing actual lethal preparations. For instance, there's this unnamed RMVE subject in Virginia, arrested with 8 Molotov cocktails, smoke bombs, firearms components, and he claimed to be a, quote, radical traditional Catholic clerical fascist.
Wow.
Then you had Robert Reynolds in Portland. He apparently gravitated towards the SSPX as a traditionalist Catholic group, posted online about being radicalized by the internet, even captioned photos, joined the Catholic Taliban. And he was investigated for weapons violations.
Catholic Taliban, that's quite a phrase.
It is. And there was a third case mentioned from Milwaukee, a subject who was part of an anti-LGBTQ group called Imperium. And this person also went to an SSPX-affiliated church.
Okay, so those examples are, well, very specific and disturbing. It really grounds that theoretical link in tangible threats, doesn't it? So like you said, no direct school shooting link mentioned, but these cases certainly show the kind of ideology and extremist motivation that could potentially drive that sort of violence. The threat seems demonstrably real, but then how the FBI identified this threat, and maybe more importantly, how they handled it, that's where things get really complicated. So next we get to Senator Grassley's major point of contention. He argues that the memo relied heavily on the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC. Now, the SPLC is known for tracking hate groups, but Senator Grassley, in his letter, he describes them as thoroughly discredited and biased.
Right. And the thing is, internal FBI communications apparently confirmed this reliance actually violated their own analytic standards, their tradecraft, as they call it. These standards require describing the quality, the credibility of your sources. An internal review even stated extra care was needed, precisely because the SPLC had labeled the group a hate group. They didn't really examine SPLC's criteria or map it to the FBI's own definitions.
So their own internal review flagged it.
Exactly. And what's maybe more concerning is that this wasn't just a one-off thing. An internal FBI search dug up at least 13 other FBI documents plus 5 attachments that used similar language and also cited the SPLC. Some of these went back as far as 2009. So it points towards, well, maybe a broader, more systemic issue with sourcing.
Okay, so the FBI's own review found issues with sourcing, found a pattern. Does using a group like the SPLC, given that description by the senator, raise sort of unique concerns for intelligence gathering compared to other sources?
I think it does, yeah. When an intelligence agency relies heavily on a source that a senior lawmaker publicly calls biased, and their own internal processes flag it for violating standards, well, it definitely impacts the perceived objectivity. It raises serious questions, Are the FBI's own definitions of extremism getting blurred or maybe unduly shaped by an outside group's agenda?
Right, that makes sense. So moving beyond the memo's content and sourcing, Senator Grassley also alleges what he called a pattern of deliberate obstruction by FBI leadership regarding this whole situation.
Yes, and the allegations here are pretty serious. The letter points to potentially misleading testimony. Director Wray apparently claimed publicly in April and July 2023 that the internal review was still ongoing or not completed yet. But FBI documents included in Grassley's letter seem to show the review was actually finalized back in April 2023, weeks, even months earlier.
That's a direct contradiction.
It appears so. And Wray also testified the memo was just a single product by a single field office. But internal communications show the Richmond analysts actually consulted with Louisville, Portland, and Milwaukee field offices. Plus, there was evidence of a second draft intelligence product, a Spear report on the very same topic, potentially for wider distribution.
So multiple offices involved and potentially a second document planned. Those are pretty significant discrepancies compared to the testimony. What are the implications of that?
Well, they really erode public trust, don't they? When you hear conflicting accounts like that from the very top, especially about an internal review meant to fix a problem, it just breeds suspicion. And it gets worse. According to a House Judiciary Committee report cited by Grassley, the then FBI Deputy Director Paul Abbott allegedly ordered the permanent removal of the memo. Not just the memo, but any edits or references from all FBI systems. This was apparently ordered the day the memo became public knowledge. The report says this led to a permanent loss of records.
Permanent loss of records.
That's what the House report alleges. And there was also an internal email ordering the pull-down of an Excel sheet that listed who had even accessed the memo. I mean, if you connect these dots, the sourcing issues, the alleged misleading statements, the deletion orders, it raises really serious questions about transparency, about accountability.
Yeah, it certainly does. So what does this all mean when we step back? This deep dive, it seems to show this stark contrast. It's not just about understanding extremist ideologies in a new way, but it's also this, well, troubling picture of alleged government misconduct, obfuscation, even destruction of records potentially. And that fundamentally changes how you might view public stories about violence and about the institutions responding to it. It really highlights a critical need for transparency, for accountability in government intelligence.
Absolutely. And maybe this leaves you, the listener, with an important question to think about. What does it really mean for public trust when the agencies we rely on for protection face accusations of such, well, profound and systemic lack of transparency when handling sensitive